everyone, this is Charmaine here, and I'm a registered dietitian that helps people reverse type 2 diabetes, and I have Galia here, who's our program coach. You can say hi to everyone, Galia.
Hi, guys.
Awesome. And today I'm super excited about our topic. I mean, I'm always excited about our podcast, but today we're actually talking about how can we help our family also change their eating habits and be able to eat healthier. And one thing that I always see in our clients are in a program is that not only are they changing and they're seeing the benefits themselves, their family also are able to benefit from their changes as well. For example, I remember Carlos, he's in one of our interviews, and I think his mother-in-law or his mother, I forgot which it is, but she was able to see that her arthritis is improving ever since she started eating more plant-based, because we all know that plant-based have great anti-inflammatory properties that can help you reduce a lot of the inflammation. And so it's cool just to see that a lot of clients, not only they themselves change, their husbands, their wives are able to benefit a lot from the diet change, and even their kids as well. Their kids started to love eating vegetables, and being able to ask their mom, like, can you make me this like garbanzo taco and things like that. And I feel like that is something that's really encouraging. So in this episode, I definitely want to talk about different ways that you can influence your whole family to be able to eat better, to be able to not just help you yourself reverse insulin resistance, but also be able to help your family members to eat healthy, have more fiber, have more plants, fruits, things like that. So yeah, that's something that I want to talk about. So Galia, what would you say is your top few tricks to help kids or help your family be able to eat healthier? Or you can also share from your personal experience too, as I know that you have positive influence on your family as well in your diet change.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I think like the first thing is, like, when we talk about eating more plant-based, there's a lot of assumptions that people make about what that looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know you've heard this one, but I've heard like so many people when they first like started or before they were considering becoming more plant-based say, I don't want to eat rabbit food, right? Like that people think that they're only going to be able to eat like celery and carrots and that's it, right? That there's this idea of what plant-based eating looks like, and it's not necessarily the case, right? Plant-based eating doesn't look one type of way. It doesn't have to be something that's ultra restrictive or limiting in your choice. And I think starting out by like leading with that's not necessarily true,
right?
It can be fun. You don't have to eat things that are boring, or these ideas that we might have, and setting that expectation that it can be whatever you want it to look like, right? And we talk about this a lot in the program, that it's really just about making those incremental changes. Like becoming more plant-based could start with one meal across the week. It doesn't have to be this radical shift. So I think starting out with those two ideas, plant-based eating, plant-based diets, they don't look one certain type of way, and it doesn't have to be like an overnight transition. Starting out like with meatless Mondays, like as a family, right? Of we're gonna make this dish together, and it can be something that your family enjoys, like a take on something that you guys enjoy, like whether that be we grew up eating a lot of like chili con carne, and like shifting to like a veggie version, right? Something that's still familiar, that you can still enjoy. It has a lot of the flavors that you like, but there's just something slightly different about it, and you can still have fun with it. So I think just really focusing on it being a gradual change. Whenever we try to change too much too quick, it can become something that's overwhelming and not necessarily something that's positive. And any changes that we make in our lives, in our lifestyle, they should be something positive. It should be something that we can have fun doing. And I think the best way to do that is taking that pressure off certain expectations, in terms of like, what does it look like? How much do I have to commit to it? And just allowing it to be something fun and something positive, something light, not something that's like a negative change that you're anxious or anticipating, making. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I love what you said about not putting the pressure, because one of the things that we learn as dietitians and how to influence not just family, but kids' behavior is that don't ever pressure. Don't ever say like, oh, you gotta eat this, or you gotta finish this, or else like you can't like watch TV. Because a lot of times if you bring that negative energy into the meals, then kids actually push back more. They're very rebellious. If you tell them to do something, they want to do the opposite, right? But a lot of times, what also researchers or people that are experts in child nutrition, they encourage you to just put it on the table, don't say anything, you eat it yourself, like be an example, right? And the kids will be like, like what is mommy eating? And they'll try to have them themselves. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is not to have the pressure of like, oh, like you have to eat this or else, or just really be able to create a happy environment where they want to try new foods, where they want to be like their parents and enjoy the healthy foods that they're eating, right? Like I remember one of our clients, I think her name is Vanessa,
I was literally just going to bring that up, because that was like, as a coach in the program, like that was one of the best interactions like I've ever had. I remember getting on a call with her, and like she literally broke down into tears, and because she had been leading by example, and her child, like her son, became curious. He was like, what's mom eating, and like why am I eating something different than my mom? And so one day he came up to her and like with his like lunchbox for school, and asked that she pack the same stuff that she was eating, and he was happy to eat it. Like he wanted to eat it. And she got so emotional because she realized, in me doing this and doing it with confidence, like I'm having that influence on my son to learn, better, healthier habits, and to try new things, to like to experiment, and to feel free to, not get in his head like I only like this stuff. Like these are the only things I like. But that's amazing. I remember, because I'm sure I believe she did have like the same conversation with you, that we were like, this is amazing, like what an amazing moment to have.
Yeah. And even I think she mentioned that her kid was enjoying it so much that even his classmates were asking him about it, and he was doing better in school, and just so many great benefits also rolled around. And I think that's the best thing, is that you're able to also affect your next generation and how their outcome is going to be. One of the things that when it comes to type 2 diabetes, I remember Dr. Neil Bernard, he always talks about how, yes, like there might be genetics at play when it comes to type 2 diabetes, but it's not just genetics that are passed down, it's also your eating habits as well. And I think it's such a great example of, their parents being able to change their habits and pass down, healthy habits for their kids. So I love that, you're able to, or we both were able to, experience seeing that in our clients as well.
100%. And I think it all comes down to like, kids are very curious, right? And like we encourage that curiosity in a lot of areas in our children and like in society. But for some reason, when it comes to nutrition, it's something that we don't necessarily encourage as much. It's very easy to, like, parenting is hard. I don't have kids. Because I'm not ready for that challenge yet, but in the recognition of, it's like the most important thing that you will ever do, right? And, you're like a parent, which is a full-time job, and you might have your own career, and you also have your relationship and family and friends, and you're navigating all these things, and you're tired. So when it comes down to having, meals made for your kids, making meals for your kids, sitting down at the dinner table, like the last thing that you want is to spend time making something and then your kid says, no, I don't want to eat it. Right? So it's very easy to stick to the same things because you're tired and like you don't want to like lose out on that time, and you know, you have a finite amount of energy. I think the best way to try and bypass this is the recognition of kids are so intelligent, they're so curious. Nutrition, food, this is another area where we can encourage that curiosity and really like focusing on kids are smart, you know, they can learn about nutrition from young. Like let's have these conversations, let's learn together, let's involve, you know, the kids, every family member in this decision making, in going grocery shopping, in planning and cooking meals together. You know, like your kids you can have like those safety knives, and you know, they can help you chop the veggies. And if it's a fun activity, they're more likely to want to eat that meal that they've contributed to making, because they've put in the work and it's become something exciting and something that they can feel proud of. I made this, you know, and really capitalizing on that, and, you know, encouraging that curiosity, that creativity, that they can find fulfillment in making these meals together and enjoying them at the table together. I feel like that's something that can be very challenging to do, because like I said, as a parent, the last thing that you want is to make a meal and then have your kid be like, no, I don't want to eat that. I want chicken nuggets or something, right? Like something that all kids love. Nothing against chicken nuggets. I occasionally partake, but
we can make chickpea nuggets.
Exactly. But that's what I was, you know, getting at, of like finding familiar favorites, right, and adjusting them to be slightly different. So whether it be like I said, how I grew up eating a lot of chili, like making that a vegan chili, or you know, transitioning from chicken nuggets to chickpea nuggets, or if your kids like tacos, like having like a taco bar that's fun and interactive and have different like things to add in there. Just making it fun and having it still feel familiar, you know, because especially with children, like children are super sensitive to textures and the appearance of food. I'll never forget, my sister hated like fish, seafood growing up. And my mom really wanted her to eat tuna. Like, I don't know why, but my mom really wanted my sister to start to eat tuna. But my sister only my sister only ate chicken, like chicken breast, and, chicken tenders and stuff like that. And so my mom made this tuna steak and like put it on the plate and told my sister, no, it's chicken. Like, you should eat it. You know, which was traumatizing.
Oh, poor thing.
Because she like tried to cut the tuna and tuna's flaky. She's like, that's not chicken, that's weird, like why does it look like that, why does it feel like that? But kids are so sensitive to like textures and the appearance of foods, and trying to work within those bounds of like what you know they're comfortable with, what they're familiar with, and like using that as a means to transition. So like I used to work as a nanny long time ago.
Same.
And I was working for a family whose, you know, kids, like they weren't really into eating vegetables. So what I had to do was like chop up a bunch of veggies, like without them seeing, and blend them to put them in like tomato sauce. So they wouldn't know they were eating like 8 different vegetables. And they would eat it. Like they were happy eating it, but they had no idea. And it allowed them to get more familiar with certain tastes, because they didn't have to have like the texture of just eating that vegetable on its own.
I love it. And I love that you mentioned taco bar, because you know, one thing that is very important when it comes to helping your kids, you know, be able to enjoy the process is actually to involve them in the process, right? Like I remember I interned at Dr. Reba's Health Club. Shout out to Dr. Reba's Health Club. And it's cool because like what we did was, you know, we actually had sessions where we teach teach kids how to make this like super simple salad. They just like throw things together, and then the adults do the cutting. And the kids really loved it. They enjoy it. They're like, wow, like this is so great. Like they enjoy it, but at home, like they don't even like touch vegetables. And I feel like that's the thing, is when you involve them, they will be proud of their work. And it's almost like crafts where, they'll be able to enjoy. And I feel like that's one of the biggest tools to, have your kids like, mix in that spaghetti sauce with you, or, make your kids like, shape the chickpea nuggets with you and things like that, where, they'll actually enjoy the process. I think that's one of the, really important items that you can involve in the process.
100%. Like I definitely see that. And like, I don't know if this exists in the US, but like in the UK, you can actually join like cooking classes in primary school as like extracurricular activity. Like after school for an hour, you do like your cooking class, you make whatever and you take it home. And it's really this idea that we're talking about the more you can get kids involved, the more you can make it like a fun thing, create that sense of accomplishment for them. They are going to start to enjoy, making meals, enjoying different types of meals, and really expand, what they're interested in eating. And I think sometimes, for the most part, I think children are more skeptical of like savory meals, because those ingredients can feel very foreign, like for a kid who doesn't really eat many vegetables, if you like put an eggplant in front of them, they're gonna be like, what is that? Like, or it's gonna feel very different to what they're used to. So you can even start with like more familiar stuff, and like on the baking side, like there are so many healthy recipes for like plant-based pancakes, like banana pancakes, that you can start the day with something fun. It can be like a weekend family activity. It is enjoyable. It's on the sweeter side, so they're going to be more open to it to begin with. But there's so many different things that you can try. But like we said, I really just do think it's about getting involved, like making it a fun activity with like a low pressure setting, not having it be, a situation where, if someone is really not interested in trying something, trying to push somebody to try something new might be worse for them. In the sense that, they might create like a negative association with that food. Like my sister didn't eat seafood until she was like 22 because of that tuna instance.
Wow.
She's fine now. We've like gotten over it. And she eats select seafood now.
Nice.
But yeah, I think it's just about encouraging the curiosity, making it interactive, keeping it light and fun, and then also leading by example, like because kids are so curious, the more they can see these foods as a normal part of like life, even if it's just via observation of like watching you as like mom or dad, or whomever you are in the family setting, the more they see you enjoying these meals and making it a point that it's something that you enjoy, the more curious they're going to be, because they want to be involved. They want to know what's so good and what you're having fun with.
Yeah, I love that. You know what I'm thinking as I'm recording this podcast, I was thinking that how kids love watching the YouTube Kids. Like I see a lot of parents, they let their kids like watch the YouTube Kids, and then a lot of times like kids learn so much from just watching these videos. I remember there's a kid that I used to babysit, and we still hang out, and then one day she was telling me about all these like different dinosaurs and their names. I'm like, I don't even remember. I just know that there's T-Rex, that's it, but she knows like all kinds of different dinosaurs, and it's all from these YouTube videos that they're watching. And I was like, what if I come up with like a show that like teach kids on like what the benefits are with like chickpeas or broccoli and things like that, and make it fun, right? And I think that's one of the things is when you educate the kids, like when you say like, oh, like this bok choy has calcium that can help you make bones, that can help you grow taller and stronger. Like they get excited and they're like, okay, like I want to eat that. Or Popeye, I feel like that's a very great example of, like encouraging kids to eat spinach, so that they can like grow strong. And I think, that's one of the things I feel like when you also teach your kids, what this can do for them, what that can do for them, they get excited and they'll want to eat it too, and, be able to be stronger, be able to, enjoy the experience of learning. And, they can even, share with their classmates, what, like this is actually good, like carrots are good for your eyes, or, oranges are good for like immunity, and, really be able to, help them with knowledge and teach them to be able to eat healthy, and they're actually like interested in it. They're proud of the education, because sometimes when we just tell kids like, eat this because it's good for you, they'll be like, oh, well, why is it good for me? It doesn't taste good, right? But really be able to give them the education, I feel like that will be something that's super helpful.
I completely agree. And, I think it's something like, because getting that education is not something that's like built into the education infrastructure, right? Like in schooling, it's not something that like we really actively learn about. It's something that we kind of have to learn at home. And if we aren't learning that like as a family at home, it can be very challenging to learn when you're an adult, right? Because it's just this extra thing that you have to learn about or discover later on in life. And it's really like, kids are like sponges, like the things that, like you said, like, because I've definitely had that kind of experience as like a nanny and a babysitter, where I'm just shocked at the level of detail that like kids can recall information with, like the specifics of like knowing every name of the dinosaur and like what period that they lived in, and stuff like that. It's absolutely incredible. And I think 100% like what you said, like if we can make that something fun to learn about, and they can see how that translates, like this food is healthy because it has this and this reason, right? It becomes almost like a superpower thing, like, oh, I remember as a kid, like my mom used to tell me, like if I ate a lot of carrots, I might be able to see in the dark. And I ate so many carrots because I actually thought like love my mom, she's hilarious, but we ate so many carrots because I was convinced that like carrots were going to help me see better, and I was going to be able to see in the dark.
Turn orange?
Honestly, I think I started to become a little bit like yellowy
That's so funny.
color. But the volume of, like, I think I was eating like a half kilo bag at one point in time, like 500 grams of carrots. Like,
that's hilarious.
But yeah, I think when you can make it something fun and cool like that, like kids are gonna get excited about it. I think, like, speaking about carrots, oddly enough, I think a huge thing is having like snacks that can be fun, right? Like as an entry level, like maybe you don't necessarily start with meals, but you can start with more kind of snacking items, whether that be like cut fruit or like veggie sticks and like fun dips, so that it's something that's easily accessible. It's like not hard to put together, and you already know that you're starting to introduce more of those foods. It's going to make it easier to have more plant-based meals, because you're getting that slow introduction into snacking on carrots or like little tomatoes and fruits and stuff like that. That's just a little bit easier of like an entryway into that whole world.
I love that. You remind me, well, I was telling Galia before we recorded this episode, I just entered a charcuterie contest, and it was all vegan and gluten-free. And, we won. So that was pretty cool. We won the contest. And what I did with, the cuties is that, I put some celery like stalks, like cut up celery stalks on the cutie so it looks like pumpkins. It's peeled. Or like with carrots, like I made the baby baby carrots. Yeah, baby carrots. I put hummus on the tip of it, and then I put like a sliced almond, so it looks like fingernails, like for Halloween. So I think like there's so many things that you can find on Pinterest as well, like so many ideas that, you know, makes fruit and vegetables look fun, and tasty as well. So I feel like that's something that, you know, will be really fun to do this Halloween, if this gets published on Halloween. If this episode gets published on Halloween, you know, you'll be able to make it in time. But anyways, I think that's really, you know, fun to do. And, you know, one thing that I thought about as well when we went to the plant nutrition conference, me and Cara, another one of our program coach, we went to the plant nutrition conference, and there was a lesson on gardening. And I feel like that is something that is super helpful in helping, you know, kids see the process of, wow, like it turned from a seed to a plant, and then to, I mean, a tree may take a longer time, but you know, into, you know, flowers, or maybe like bok choy, or you know, kale is something that's like fast for them to grow, or even like tomatoes. Like I don't think that takes very long for, you know, tomatoes to grow. I'm not a gardener. My experience, we already have fruit trees in the garden, so you know, that's something that, you know, you can also help them see the process of, wow, like it like farm to table, right? Like it turned from a seed into an actual plant where they can actually eat it, and then like teach them to save the seeds where they can grow it again. And I think that is a super fun way to not just have family time together in gardening, but also be able to, you know, include more fruits and vegetables into their diet. So yeah.
I love that so much. Like, I think for everything that you've just said, and like to add on to that too, just like we were saying before about getting involved in actually like preparing the meals, it's the same thing. Like if you're involved in the process of like growing these things, it feels like an accomplishment to like have them on the table.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna want to participate in eating those, like preparing them into dishes, or you know, whatever it might be, because you've been a part of the process, right? And it creates this sense of accomplishment of, you know, I grew this tomato, or you know, I grew this strawberry, or whatever it is. And that sense of accomplishment is gonna want to make you like partake in you know, whatever activity it is, if you're just eating them like straight from there, or you know, putting those into meals. So I think that's amazing. And like you said, it doubles down not only in terms of becoming more plant-based, but also like as a family activity, as like an opportunity to spend time together and bond, and do something that's like really constructive, like away from like screens, or you know, stuff like that. Like just a really wholesome activity that's going to be beneficial for every single person in the family. I mean, if I didn't live in an apartment, like if I lived in a house, I would have a garden. Like that's my fantasy. My fantasy is I want to grow as much food as possible, and like eat that, and then have a neighbor who grows food, and we like exchange stuff, like, grow different things.
I love that.
You complete my sentences.
That's cute.
But yeah, that's like my dream. But I think it's just such an amazing activity to have, and like you don't even need that much space, right? Like you could just have like one plant, you know, you can kind of test it out. You don't have to like fully invest in having like a vegetable garden or like a patch, but just starting with like one plant and seeing how that goes and what that's like. Yeah, I absolutely love that.
Or even start with like veggie starters. That's what I asked about. You know, I asked the speaker, I was like, how can I start? Because I like kill plants. Like, you know, that's what I'm known for. Not, you know, maliciously, but you know, I'm not a good gardener. I'm really good with pets, but like I forget about like plants and stuff. And so he said, like, you know, you can buy like veggie starters to start with, that you know, they already grew it for you. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. So, you know, I think that's something, and I'm really grateful because, you know, people who got the house before us, they already planted trees that, you know, is already producing fruits.
They did the hard work.
Yes, thank you. I know, like they probably planted the mango tree like 60 years ago. Now it's like a huge tree. And so, I mean, we didn't trim it this year, so it only produced one fruit. So we need to prune it. But anyways, next year, hopefully we'll get more mangoes. But we definitely get a lot of loquats and things like that. But anywho, I think that's something that, it's super fun and you guys should try it no matter if, it's an apartment or in a house. I think it's a great way to, bond, and, it's also very soothing too. So I think that's something that will be helpful. But to wrap it up, Galia, what would you say is your, last tip that you will leave with our audience with, helping their family change their way of eating?
Yeah, I think I would go back to like right at the beginning of like this podcast, right? This conversation, and really just kind of refocusing on, plant-based doesn't necessarily mean that the only stuff that you eat is like, plant-based foods, right? It doesn't mean that you're, vegan. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're vegetarian. It's just a conscious effort to have more plant-based foods in your life. And that can look a different way for every person, every family, right? And, there is only benefit in adding more plant-based foods, right? Even if that's just starting with one meal across the week or just a few snacks, there's benefit in that for yourself, for every person in your household. Like I said, I think getting those ideas out of our head that, plant-based looks a certain way, it means we can only eat like celery and carrots and, leaves and stuff like that. It can be so much more fun. And we're really lucky to live in this like modern media age where there are ideas for snacks, recipes, baking at our fingertips. Like you can open Instagram, you can open Pinterest, you can open YouTube. There's so many ideas out there. So if you're having a hard time in terms of like visualizing what that might look like for you, for your family, like I would just get on the internet and like search easy plant-based meals, snacks for families. Like you're not going to be the first person who's curious or considering, there's so many people out there who have made that gradual transition, like I said earlier. And I found a way to make it fun and make it work for every family member, right? So I think that, like just really making that distinction of plant-based looks different from person to person, doesn't necessarily mean that the only foods that you eat are plant-based foods. You can have a mix, you can find a balance that works for you, where every person can feel like fulfilled in what they're eating. So that's what I would say. What would be your top tip?
I think my top tip is to also focus on the big picture, focus on the long run rather than the day-to-day, because I know the day-to-day can be frustrating sometimes, right? Like it's like every meal is a battle, making your kids like be able to eat, this and that. And so I think really be able to focus on the long term of, okay, like it's okay if they don't feel ready to try this meal. It's okay. Like just, it takes time, and just know that in the long run, right? Like as long as you're persistent, as long as you're patient, they'll be able to see your effort, and they'll be able to slowly, gradually change as well. And something that I'm, very excited about for people to hear this podcast is just to know that it's a ripple effect. When you yourself change, your family around you, your friends around you, they'll be curious and they'll be like, what are you doing? And they'll start changing as well. And that actually happens with so many of our clients where, their friends are like, what are you doing? Or, their family is like, I want to do it with you. And so I think that's, the number one thing that, and their family is always like, I wish like we did this earlier. And, and I think that's something that you can, kind of envision when you have that vision in your head, and knowing that, okay, when you change, other people will slowly change as well, or quickly change, who knows, depending on when they're ready. I think that would be, my biggest tip is to, really focus on the big picture, if that makes sense. But I really enjoyed, oh, sorry, did you want to add something, Galia?
No, I was going to say, I love that. And like, I think it's just such an amazing feeling to have, like, because making any kind of changes when it comes to our lifestyle is, it can be challenging, right? And I think it's more so that we perceive it to be more challenging than it actually is. But I think something that is an amazing experience that drives you forward is seeing that change in the people around you, right? Like when you see that your kids are becoming more curious, or like, for example, for me, in my experience, like my husband became more curious about plant-based foods. Like he didn't eat like any vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, as I became plant-based, he became curious and he wanted to try things. And, you know, now he eats so many more foods than he, I think, has ever like eaten in his life, like in terms of the variety that makes up his week. And I think those experiences, like, they really give you a newfound level of like motivation and momentum, because it feels really good to know that, like you said, there's that ripple effect, especially when it's with the people that you care most about. And like for I feel pretty okay in saying this, but like for most people, our biggest motivation is our family, right? It's like wanting to be healthier, wanting to feel better, wanting to do better, like for our family. And so when you get to see that happen in real time, like there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And, you know, I hope that you guys who are listening to will start making those small changes that can also influence your family as well, because you just never know what a small ripple can do. And so if you guys are also interested in learning more about how we help people reverse type 2 diabetes and reverse insulin resistance with a plant predominant diet, you can also watch our free training. The link is in the show notes or in the description if you're watching it on YouTube. And thank you so much for listening in. I totally enjoyed this. Thank you, Galia, for joining me in this conversation, and hope you guys have a wonderful day.